The shovel hit the earth like a thunderclap, splintering the quiet of the overgrown rose garden. As Henry's hands trembled not from the cold November chill, but from the raw fury boiling in his chest. "You think you can just erase me? Like I was never here?" he snarled into the empty air, his voice cracking like the frost underfoot. The words aimed at the ghost of the old man who'd promised him everything. In that frozen moment, as dirt flew and tears blurred the wilting petals around him, Henry realized the will wasn't just paper, it was the final betrayal, signed away to blood that had never once bent to forgive. Henry wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his forearm, the late summer sun baking the manicured lawns of Willow Creek Estates into a golden haze. At 32, he moved through the days like a shadow in paradise, clipping hedges, coaxing life from stubborn soil, turning the sprawling estate of Elias Hawthorne into a testament to quiet endurance. The Hawthorne mansion loomed behind him, all white-columned grandeur and wraparound porches, a relic of old Southern money transplanted to the rolling hills of upstate New York. It was the kind of place where secrets festered like weeds in the undergrowth, and Henry had learned to spot them early. Elias had hired him 5 years ago, not for his green thumb alone, but for the way Henry's eyes lit up when he talked about salvaging the dying magnolias out back. "Boy," Elias had drawled in that gravelly baritone, thick with a faded Georgia lilt, "you got the hands of a healer. This place needs that more than fertilizer." Elias was 82 then, widowed twice over, with a brood of grown children who visited like hurricanes, brief, destructive, and gone before the debris cleared. But Henry stayed. He weeded the flower beds by dawn, shared black coffee on the veranda at dusk, and listened as Elias unspooled tales of bootleg whiskey runs and lost loves from the Jazz Age. It started innocent enough. A pat on the back that lingered, a shared glance over the rim of whiskey glasses that said more than words ever could. Henry had come out at 20, back in the dusty trailer parks of rural Pennsylvania, where his father's fists taught him silence was survival. But with Elias, there was no hiding. The old man knew, had known from the first awkward fumble in the potting shed 2 years in, when Henry's resolve cracked under the weight of loneliness and Elias's unexpected tenderness. "Ain't no shame in loving who you love, son," Elias had murmured, his arthritic fingers tracing the curve of Henry's jaw. "World's cruel enough without us adding to it." Their affair was a fragile bloom, hidden in the estate's forgotten corners, the linen closet during a family Easter brunch, the back seat of Elias's antique Cadillac under starlit drives. It wasn't fireworks, it was embers, warm and sustaining against the chill of Elias's isolation. His kids, Victoria, the iron-fisted lawyer from Manhattan, Preston, the Wall Street shark with a coke habit and a trophy wife, and little Theo, the black sheep artist drifting through Brooklyn, despised Henry from the jump. "Daddy's pet project," Victoria sneered once, her pearls clacking like judgment as she eyed him across the dinner table. Preston just laughed. "A oily bark, gardener? More like gold digger in overalls." Theo offered a sympathetic shrug, but even he kept his distance, whispering to Henry one boozy night, "They're vultures." Blood don't mean loyalty. Henry didn't care. Not really. Elias's love was real, fiercer than the rejections he'd weathered from his own kin. When his father disowned him after walking in on him with a high school sweetheart, Henry had hitchhiked north, vowing never to beg for scraps again. Elias filled that void, not with grand gestures, but with trust. "You're my family now. Henry, he'd say, pressing a worn photo of his late partner, another secret from the 50s, into Henry's palm. The only one that matters. By fault. Elias's health frayed like old rope. Defensive, aggressive and unyielding, sank its hooks in quiet. Henry nursed him through the nights, morphine drips and whispered promises, while the family circled like sharks scenting blood. Victoria flew in with spreadsheets of estate planning, Preston with whispers of tax shelters. Theo showed up last, hungover and hollow-eyed, sketching Elias's gaunt face in charcoal. Henry was the constant, brewing bone broth and reading aloud from dog-eared Steinbecks until Elias's breaths evened into sleep. One rain-lashed afternoon, as thunder rattled the leaded windows, Elias gripped Henry's hand with surprising steel. "The will," he rasped, eyes fever-bright. "My lawyer's drawn it up. The house, the land, it's yours. Henry. All of it. They get their shares. Sure. But this place. It's for the boy who brought it back to life." Henry's heart stuttered. A wild thing caged too long. "Elias, you can't. I can. And I will." Elias's smile was a ghost of its former warmth. "You're the son I always wanted. The one who saw me. Truly saw me. Let him squawk." "It's done." The lawyer, a bespectacled drone named Mr. arrived the next day with crisp vellum pages. Henry signed as witness, his signature shaky beside Elias's looping scrawl. It felt like sealing a pact with fate, equal parts terror and triumph. Elias slipped away 3 weeks later, in the hush of a December dawn. Henry found him in the master suite, hands folded like prayer, a faint smile on his lips as if dreaming of magnolias in bloom. The estate fell silent, save for the keening wind through the pines. Henry buried his grief in the soil, planting a ring of forget-me-nots around the stone bench where they'd first kissed. But the vultures descended by New Year's. Victoria led the charge, her heels clicking like metronomes of doom as she rifled through Elias's desk. "This is absurd," she hissed, waving the will like a soiled rag. "Daddy was delirious. Senile. And you," her gaze sliced to Henry, who stood frozen in the doorway, mud still caked on his boots. "You manipulated him." "A gardener? With designs on our legacy?" Preston lounged against the mantel, swirling bourbon. "Come on. Let's not pretend. The old man's been playing house with the help. It's embarrassing." Theo hovered by the window, chewing his lip. "Ease up." Dad knew what he was doing, but the seed was planted. Whispers turned to calls, lawyers, private investigators, a smear campaign that painted Henry as the scheming outsider preying on a vulnerable elder. The tabloids in Albany picked it up. Hawthorne heirloom heist, gay gardener's greedy grab? Henry retreated to the potting shed, the one place untouched by their venom, and nursed a bottle of Elias's scotch until dawn. Spring thawed the ground, but not the frost in the Hawthorne siblings' hearts. Victoria filed the contest, citing undue influence and lack of capacity. Preston dug up dirt, Henry's deviant lifestyle, as they phrased it in court docs, complete with grainy photos from some dive bar in Syracuse. Theo tried to mediate, slipping Henry a note, "I'm sorry. They're unstoppable." But unstoppable things break eventually, Henry told himself, clipping roses with hands that shook. The bomb dropped in June. Preston's wife, Lydia, announced her pregnancy, twins, no less. Real grandchildren, Victoria crowed at the family meeting, her eyes gleaming like polished steel. Daddy always wanted blood heirs. This changes everything. The will's codicil, unearthed like a buried blade, kicked in, provisions for direct descendants that could override Henry's inheritance if legitimate heirs appeared. Sweating bullets? Confirmed it, a loophole Elias had insisted on for just in case. Henry felt the ground shift, the estate's roots ripping free. Betrayal wasn't just the siblings' greed, it was Elias's own safeguard. A whisper of doubt that pierced deeper than any thorn. That night, alone in the guest cottage Elias had deeded him as a starter, Henry curled into the quilt that still smelled of pipe tobacco and regret. For the first time since the funeral, he let the sobs come, ugly, wrenching things that echoed off the empty walls. But dawn brought resolve. Henry rose, boots laced tight, and marched to the mansion's library. Victoria was there, ultrasound photos splayed like victory flags. "Get out," she snapped, not looking up. No, Henry's voice was steady, forged in the fire of too many lost battles. This isn't about twins or loopholes. It's about what Elias wanted. Us, she laughed, sharp as shattered glass. Us? You were a fling, Henry. A pity fuck for a dying man. Now pack your tools and go. He didn't. Instead, he called Theo, the one crack in their armor. They met at the local diner, all chrome stools and greasy hash browns, the kind of joint where truckers nursed coffees and secrets. Theo slid into the booth, gaunt and guilty. I tried talking sense into them. Vic's got the judge in her pocket, old fraternity buddy from Yale. Henry stirred his coffee, black as his mood. And you? What's your play? Theo's eyes darted, then held. I'm out. Dad left me my trust. But this. It's poison. But you fight it. For him, it was a spark. Faint but real. Henry nodded, the weight lifting just a fraction. The American heartland stretched wide, fields of corn whispering promises of rebirth, highways snaking toward unknown horizons. He wasn't alone. Not entirely. As summer deepened, Henry threw himself into the garden, transforming it into a riot of color, sunflowers nodding like sentinels, lavender beds humming with bees. Word spread in Willow Creek, locals, tired of the Hawthorns' high-handed ways, started dropping by with pies and nods of solidarity. Elias was lucky to have you, old missus. Delaney from the library murmured, pressing a book of Whitman's poems into his hands. Leaves of grass, verses of raw, unapologetic self. It was there, amid the pages, that Henry found his anchor. And perhaps, in the quiet bloom of acceptance, the first stirrings of something new, a chance to love again, not in shadows, but in the full glare of day. The courtroom in Albany smelled of polished oak and stale ambition, the kind of scent that clung to power suits and whispered deals. Henry sat ramrod straight in the back row, his work jeans a defiant splash of earth against the sea of pinstripes. Victoria's legal team, 3 sharks in Brooks Brothers, paraded witnesses like trophies, the family doctors swearing Elias's pain meds clouded his judgment. A former associate, claiming Henry had unduly influenced the old man with inappropriate advances. The word hung in the air, laced with venom, and Henry felt it like a slap. Hot and humiliating. Preston took the stand next, his testimony a masterclass in smarm. "My father was a traditionalist," he drawled, adjusting his Rolex with theatrical flair. "Family meant blood, legacy, heirs. Now, this," he gestured vaguely toward Henry, as if he were a stain on the proceedings. The judge, a silver-haired patrician with a bow tie that screamed old money, nodded sagely. Lydia, radiant in maternity chic, dabbed at crocodile tears from the gallery, her belly a prop in their pageant of propriety. Henry's lawyer, a no-nonsense firebrand named Carla Ruiz from Legal Aid, pro bono, because even she smelled the injustice, cross-examined with the precision of a surgeon. "Mr. Hawthorne," she pressed Preston, her voice like velvet over steel. "Did your father ever express regret over the will?" Preston shifted, sweat beading on his upper lip. But, and this traditionalist, did he ever disapprove of your own indiscretions? The ones that cost the firm $500,000 in settlements. The courtroom tittered, a ripple of schadenfreude. Preston flushed crimson, but the damage stuck. Theo didn't testify. He sent affidavits instead, glowing accounts of Henry's devotion, Elias's lucidity in his final months. "Dad called Henry his true heir," Theo wrote, the words a lifeline in the deluge. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The real grandchildren clause loomed like a guillotine, with Lydia's twins due any day. The estate's future teetered on the edge of legitimacy. So, after the recess, Henry lit a cigarette, a habit he'd kicked for Elias, now resurrected like a bad memory. The Hudson River glittered mockingly in the distance, a ribbon of freedom he couldn't quite reach. That's when Alex appeared, leaning against a lamppost in faded Levi's and a flannel shirt rolled to his elbows. Alex Rivera, the mechanic from the garage down the block, with olive skin and a crooked grin that could disarm a bomb. They'd crossed paths at the diner, bonding over bad coffee and worse exes. Alex is a closeted cop who'd bailed when things got too real. "You holding up?" Alex asked, plucking the cig from Henry's fingers and taking a drag. His dark eyes, flecked with gold, searched Henry's face with an intensity that made his knees weak. Henry exhaled smoke, watching it curl toward the overcast sky. Like a house of cards in a hurricane, Alex stepped closer, close enough for Henry to catch the scent of motor oil and sandalwood soap. "Then let me be the duct tape." It was casual, almost flippant, but the way his hand brushed Henry's arm, firm, lingering, sent a jolt straight to his core. For the first time since Elias's death, Henry felt seen. Not as the rejected lover, the contested beneficiary, but as a man deserving of touch. They fell into an easy rhythm after that. Alex showed up at the estate unannounced, toolbox in hand, fixing the Cadillac that didn't need fixing. They'd tinker under the hood, hands grease-streaked and laughing at inside jokes, until the sun dipped low and pulled them into the back seat for stolen moments, kisses that tasted of possibility, bodies moving with the urgency of men who'd waited too long for grace. "You're not alone in this fight," Alex murmured one twilight, his breath hot against Henry's neck. "I've got your back. And your front. If you'll let me." It was terrifying, exhilarating. "Henry, who'd armored himself against heartbreak, cracked open like sun-baked clay. Alex wasn't Elias, no grand estate, no shadowed history, but he was present, raw and unfiltered, with a laugh that echoed through the garden like birdsong. They walked the paths at dusk, Alex's arms slung casual around Henry's shoulders, debating everything from Kerouac's open roads to the hypocrisy of small-town bigotry. "Willow Creek's changing," Alex said one night, as they lay tangled in the cottage sheets, fireflies winking through the window. "Gotta believe that. Or what's the point?" But belief was a luxury Henry couldn't afford. The twins arrived in a blaze of headlines: Hawthorne legacy secured, heirs born amid legal storm, and Victoria pounced. She petitioned for immediate probate, arguing the codicil invalidated Henry's claim outright. "Blood trumps convenience," her lawyer thundered in the next hearing, the words a knife twist. Carla fought back with character witnesses, Mrs. Delaney, who testified to Elias's sharp mind, the estate's longtime cook, who recounted nights of lucid planning. Even Theo appeared, voice steady. Henry was Dad's heart. "You can't probate that away." The judge adjourned for deliberation, a 2-week limbo that stretched like taffy. Henry filled it with motion, ripping out the dead azaleas, planting heirloom tomatoes in neat rows. Alex helped, his presence a balm. One afternoon, as they knelt in the dirt, fingers brushing soil, Alex paused. "Marry me," he said. Not a question but a dare. Holding out a ring fashioned from twisted copper wire, a mechanic's vow. Henry's laugh bubbled up, half sob. "You're insane." "About you?" "Guilty." Alex's gaze was fierce, unwavering. "Not for the will or the money. For us. Say yes, Henry. Build something real." Tear-stung, unbidden. For all the romance Elias had gifted him, it had been laced with endings. Alex offered beginnings. "Yes," Henry whispered, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of earth and eternity. But fate, that cruel curator, had other plans. The night before the ruling, Theo called, voice slurred with panic. "Vic's got something." "Photos, from the shed. She had a PI tailing you and Dad." "It's bad?" "Henry. Real bad." The betrayal landed like a sucker punch. "Theo? The ally? The confessor?" "No, Victoria." Using her brother's reluctant access to plant the trap. Henry stormed the mansion at midnight, pounding on the door until Preston answered. "Silk robe askew, eyes bloodshot." "You slimy bastard," Henry roared, shoving past him into the foyer. Victoria descended the stairs like a queen, documents in hand, blurry shots of Elias and Henry, frozen in intimacy. "Evidence of coercion," she purred, triumphant. Daddy wasn't in his right mind. "You preyed on him. You don't know the half," Henry spat, chest heaving. "He loved me. More than he ever loved you vultures." Preston chuckled, low and mean. "Huh? That's rich. But blood? That's bankable." He nodded to the hall, where Lydia cradled one twin, the other in a bassinet, tiny faces, innocent weapons. "Meet your replacements." Henry's world tilted. He fled to the garden, the one sanctuary, and sank to his knees by the forget-me's. Alex found him there at dawn, pulling him into an embrace that shattered the dam. "We'll fight," Alex vowed. But Henry's sobs said otherwise. The will, the love, it all felt like smoke now, slipping through his fingers. The ruling came down like a gavel on glass, codicil upheld. The estate to the heirs. Henry's share reduced to a pittance, a cottage and a plot of land. In recognition of service. Victoria's smile from the courthouse steps was a blade sheathed in civility. Run along now, gardener. Find another yard to weed. Henry didn't run. He packed deliberate, folding Elias's quilt with care, slipping leaves of grass into his duffel. Alex waited in the truck, engine humming like a heartbeat. As they pulled away from Willow Creek, the mansion shrinking in the rear view, Henry glanced back one last time. The roses bloomed defiant, a silent testament. But closure? That was a myth. The real storm brewed in the letters, Hargrove's confidential note. Slipped to Henry post-ruling, Elias added a trust fund. For you alone. Untouchable. For the life we built. It was a whisper from the grave. A final act of faith. Henry's hand found Alex's on the gearshift. The road ahead unspooled. Endless and American, paved with heartbreak, but also hope. They were headed west, toward the Rockies, where Alex had kin and Henry had nothing but possibility. To new gardens, Alex said, grinning. Henry smiled, faint but true. To us, yet as the miles blurred, doubt gnawed. Theo's silence since the leak, guilt or complicity, and the twins, those innocent pawns, what future did greed forge for them? Henry pushed it down, focusing on the man beside him. Love wasn't a will, it was a choice, renewed daily. In Denver, they crashed with Alex's cousin, a queer artist collective buzzing with rainbow flags and half-finished murals. Henry found work at a community farm, hands back in the dirt, coaxing kale from clay. Nights were for Alex, lazy suppers of street tacos, slow dances in the kitchen to Coltrane on vinyl. It was messy, a far cry from the Hawthorne polish. But it fit, like gloves worn soft from use. One evening, as snow dusted the windows, package arrived, unmarked, postmarked Albany. Inside, Theo's sketchbook, pages filled with Elias's portraits, Henry's hands planting bulbs, the family in fractured vignettes. A note tumbled out, I leaked it. To end it quick. But Dad was right, your family. Forgive me? Tears pricked. Betrayal's echo. Softened by remorse. Henry penned back, growth takes time. Water it. He tucked the book away. A talisman. Spring came, and with it, a call from Hargrove. The trust, millions, invested wisely. Enough for land of their own. A life unyoked. Elias knew, the lawyer said. He bet on you. Henry hung up, pulling Alex close. We're free. But freedom's price lingered, the scar of rejection. The what-ifs. In quiet moments, Henry wondered about the twins, if Victoria's grip would choke their bloom. He sent anonymous seeds packets to the estate, wildflowers, resilient weeds. A gardener's grace. The Colorado sun rose like a promise kept, gilding the aspens in liquid gold as Henry and Alex broke ground on their 5 acres outside Boulder. It was scrubland, mostly rocky soil and stubborn sagebrush, but Henry saw potential, the way he always had. Patience, he told Alex. who grumbled good-naturedly as they wrestled irrigation lines into place. Everything starts small. Their cabin was a fixer-upper. All exposed beams and creaky floors, bought with the trust's first disbursement. No Hawthorne opulence here, just a clawfoot tub for two, a porch swing for stargazing, and a bedroom window framing the flatirons like a postcard from God. Alex thrived in the chaos. His mechanics shop in town booming with Boulderite's eco-hybrids. Fixing cars by day. You by night, he'd tease, nipping at Henry's ear over morning oatmeal. But peace was a jealous lover, fragile against intrusion. It shattered one August afternoon, a FedEx envelope slapping the mailbox like an afterthought from hell. Return address, Hargrove and Associates. Inside. A deposition notice, Victoria Hawthorne. Plaintiff in a countersuit. Fraudulent inducement, the cover letter read. Accusing Henry of concealing his relationship to sway the will. Attachments, more photos. Timestamps predating the codicil. Affidavits from neighbors who'd overheard suspicious conversations. Henry's stomach plummeted. How? He breathed, handing the packet to Alex, who scanned it with darkening eyes. They're desperate, Alex said, crumpling the edge. Twins are here. But the market crashed, Preston's hedge fund tanked. They need the land to bail him out. Rage simmered. Hot and familiar. Henry paced the porch, boots thudding like heartbeats. Elias's gift. This hard-won sanctuary, threatened again by the same venomous kin. I won't let them touch this, he vowed. Voice low thunder. Not us. Carla Ruiz, bless her, took the case interstate, no charge, fueled by righteous fire. We've got precedent, she assured over Zoom, her Brooklyn accent clipping like shears. Elder autonomy. Queer rights, it's a slam dunk. But Henry knew better. The Hawthorns played dirty, this was round 2. Gloves off. The virtual hearings dragged into fall. Pixels flickering with Victoria's Botox-smooth sneer. My father deserved dignity, she testified, dabbing a silk hanky. Not exploitation by his employee. Preston backed her, blaming lifestyle choices for Elias's decline. The twins appeared in photos now, chubby-cheeked cherubs in monogrammed onesies. Props for pathos. Theo broke rank spectacularly. On the stand via video, his face haggard under gallery lights, he dismantled their narrative brick by brick. You want truth, he snapped at Victoria's lawyer. Voice raw. Dad was lucid as hell. He rewrote that will 3 times, each draft more generous to Henry. And the exploitation? That's projection. Remember your affair with the pool boy? Or Preston's escorts? Gasps rippled through the feed. Victoria's composure cracked. A hairline fracture. The judge, a no-nonsense woman from Denver with a rainbow pin on her robe, banged the gavel. Counsel, rein it in. But relevance noted. The camera. Theo texted Henry, burning bridges. Worth it. It was absolution, partial but potent. Betrayal's sting dulled to ache. Alex anchored him through the maelstrom. They drive the backroads after sessions. Windows down. Springsteen blasting, Born to Run, on repeat. An anthem for fugitives of fate. One night, parked at Brainerd Lake. Stars a spill of diamonds overhead. Alex turned serious. If we lose this, we won't. Henry's hand on his thigh. Grounding. But if? Alex's eyes searched the dark. You know I'd walk with you. To the ends. The vulnerability hit like a wave. Henry pulled him close. Their foreheads touching. I love you, he said. The words a vow heavier than any ring. For seeing me whole. They made love there. Urgent and tender. The truck's bench a makeshift altar. Afterward, wrapped in a wool blanket, Henry confessed the ghosts, Elias's final rasp. Be brave. Echoing in nightmares. Alex listened, then shared his own, coming out to a familia that exiled him at 18, scraping by in Albuquerque dives until Boulder called. We're survivors, Alex murmured. That's our legacy. Winter clamped down, blanketing the land in hush. The countersuit crumbled under scrutiny, photos debunked as composites. Affidavits recanted when Carla threatened perjury charges. Victoria's team folded in January. A curt email conceding defeat. No further action, it read. But the subtext screamed retreat. Henry celebrated quietly, a bonfire in the pit they dug. Elias's quilt draped over shoulders. Alex's head on his lap. To the dead, Henry toasted with whiskey. And the living. Flames danced, casting shadows that looked like wings. But humaneness demanded more than victory. Theo arrived unannounced in February. Rental car crunching gravel. A duffel slung over his shoulder. Mind if I crash? Brooklyn's suffocating. He looked wrecked, thinner. Eyes shadowed, but his hug was fierce. Genuine. Always, Henry said, clapping his back. They talked till midnight. Theo spilling the hawthorn rot, Preston's bankruptcy whispers. Victoria's pill habit masked as stress. The twins. Doted on but distant. Shuttled between nannies. You're the better man, Theo admitted. Sketching idly on a napkin, a quick portrait of Henry and Alex. Intertwined. Dad knew. Forgiveness flowed easy then. Like irrigation after drought. Theo stayed through mud season. Helping with the greenhouse. His artist's eye turning rows of heirlooms into living sculpture. Alex ribbed him gently, city boys gone country, but the three of them knit a fragile family. Mending tears with laughter and late-night poker. Spring unfurled. And with it, a letter from Lydia. Not Victoria's script, but her own. Shaky and sincere, the boys ask about the garden man. Vic won't say. But I remember your kindness, Elias's stories. If you're open, we'd like to visit. No strings. Enclosed, a photo of the twins. Dimpled grins amid daisies. Henry stared at it for days. Thumb tracing the edges. That elusive bloom. Alex squeezed his shoulder. You're called love. He wrote back, come. Bring seeds. It was a bridge. Tentative. Toward the blood that might yet learn grace. As summer crested, the farm flourished, CSA boxes brimming with greens. A farm stand drawing locals with signs proclaiming queer grown. Heart-fed. Henry stood amid the bounty one golden evening. Alex's arms around his waist. Theo snapping photos. The Flatirons loomed eternal. A reminder, landscapes shift. But roots endure. Yet in the quiet, Henry grieved the road not taken, the Hawthorne estate, reclaimed by weeds without his hands. He'd driven past once, en route to a supplier, glimpsing the mansion's faded glory through iron gates. Roses overrun. Porch sagging. A sign, for sale. He didn't stop. Some closures were internal, etched in scar tissue turned strength. The twins arrived on a whim of weather, a crisp October Saturday when aspens blazed crimson and the air hummed with harvest. Lydia pulled up in a sensible SUV, Victoria's shadow absent, her face softer than Henry remembered, lines etched by sleepless nights. The boys, Jasper and Finn, tumbled out like puppies, toddler chaos in overalls, clutching sippy cups and toy trucks. "Unca Henny," Jasper lisped, spotting Henry from the porch, as if the years and lawsuits were mere footnotes. Lydia's laugh was tentative, apologetic. They saw the photos. The ones you sent seeds with. Her eyes flicked to the garden, where Henry's wildflowers had taken root back home, echoes of grace returned. Henry knelt, scooping Jasper into a hug that smelled of Cheerios and crayons. "Hey, buddy. Ready to dig?" Finn nodded shyly, extending a grubby fistful of dirt. Alex hovered, charming as ever, offering tours while Theo wrangled the grill for a low-key barbecue. It was surreal. This patchwork piece, the woman who'd wielded her womb as a weapon now sipping cider, watching her sons chase fireflies with unbridled glee. They talked in fits and starts, Lydia confessing the fractures. Preston's gone, divorce papers signed last month. Vic's in rehab. Finally. It was all crumbling anyway. Her voice cracked. Elias warned us. Money's a chain, not a crown. We didn't listen. Henry nodded, flipping burgers with deliberate calm. He had a way of cutting through the bullshit. The pause, heavy with unsaid. "The photo, thanks for sending it." She smiled. "Faith. They deserve uncles. Real ones." It hung there, an olive branch wrapped in regret. As dusk fell, the boys conked out in the guest room, Lydia tucking them with a lullaby Elias once hummed. On the porch, stars pricking the velvet sky, she turned to Henry. "I'm sorry. For everything. You gave him joy, we took it away." "Forgiven," Henry said simply, meaning it. Not erasure, but evolution. Wound scabbed, then scarred into stories. She left at dawn. Promises exchanged, holidays. Maybe. Or summer visits. The SUV's taillights faded, and Henry felt lighter, unburdened. Alex pulled him inside, their bed a haven of flannel and firelight. "Proud of you," Alex whispered, tracing constellations on Henry's chest. "Building bridges like you build gardens." Henry thought. Was that tending, not possessing? Grew wild, resilient. Winter wove its spell, snow blanketing the farm in hush. Theo decamped back to Brooklyn by Thanksgiving. Sketchbook fat with new muses, the twins' portraits. Alex elbow-deep in engines. Henry knee-deep in compost. "You're my Hawthorne now," he joked, hugging goodbye. But the words lingered, a quiet truth. Preston's reckoning came swift, a tabloid exposé on his Ponzi echoes, indictments piling like cordwood. He called Henry once, from a prepaid burner, voice slurred and desperate. "Help me out." "Yeah. For Dad's sake." Henry listened, then hung up. No bridges there, some soil was too salted for seeds. Victoria emerged from rehab gaunt but glowing. A letter arriving in spring, learning to weed my own garden. The estate sold, to a queer youth center. Fitting. You're doing. In a way. Enclosed, keys to the old potting shed. Deeded personally. Visit anytime. Plant something. If you did. That summer solstice. Drove east alone. Alex's blessing in his pocket. The center buzzed, teens in pride tees tending raised beds. Murals of fierce blooms on the barn. The shed stood unchanged. Tools racked like relics. Henry planted lavender, Elias's favorite. For memory and calm. The boy, maybe 19, with Henry's own haunted eyes. Approached. You the gardener from the stories? Henry smiled. Just Henry. What's your name? Jamie. They say you fought for this place. Won some. Lost some. He handed over a trowel. But the real fight's every day. Dig in. Driving back west. Windows down. Dylan crooning the times they are a-changin'. Henry felt the arc bend. Not toward perfection, life's messier than that, but toward mercy. The twins' visit became ritual, Thanksgivings with pie fights. Easter's egg hunts in the orchard. Lydia divorced amicably, finding her footing as a single mom. Her laugh freer each year. Alex proposed proper on their 3rd anniversary, a ring from a silversmith in Santa Fe. Turquoise inlay like mountain skies. They married in the garden, barefoot under aspens. Theo officiating with rye vows. The twins ring-bearers in tiny bow ties. Vows exchanged, in dirt and in dawn, through thorns and through bloom. Carla toasted with champagne, to love that outlasts legacies. Years folded like pages. The farm expanded, a co-op now. Employing outcasts, ex-cons turning wrenches with Alex. Queer kids learning soil with Henry. Theo's gallery show in Chelsea featured their saga, Roots of Rejection. Canvases of fractured families mending green. Elias visited in dreams. Less frequent but fond, sitting the porch swing. Pipe aglow. Knew you had it in you? Son. Henry woke smiling. Reaching for Alex's warmth. It lingered in shadows, the empty chair at gatherings. The ache of what is. But humaneness bloomed brighter, in Jasper's first crush confession. Finn's sketches echoing Theo's. Lydia's quiet coming out over wine. Bloodlines blurred. Love the true air. On a November eve, 20 years to the day Elias passed, Henry stood in the rose garden, his own now. Thorns tamed. Alex joined him, silver threading their hair, hands entwined. Full circle, Alex murmured. Henry nodded, gazing at the stars. And just beginning, the shovel, long retired, leaned by the shed. But the earth waited, ever patient, for hands like his, tender, tenacious, unafraid.